Hare Krishna. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Radha Madana Mohana, Radha Madana Mohana Radhe. Jaya Nitai Gauranga, Jaya Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Jaya Nitai Gauranga, Jaya. Jaya Srinivas Govinda, Jaya Srinivas Govinda, Srinivas Govinda, Jaya Srinivas Govinda, Jaya Jaya Prahlad Narsimha, Jaya
यत आत्मा स आत्मा स्वाश्रयाश्रयः स आत्मा स्वाश्रयाश्रयाः एकम् एकतराभावे यदा नोपलभामहे द्वितीयं त्रितयं तत्र यो वेदा स आत्मा स्वाश्रयाश्रयः एकमेकतराभावे यदा नोपलभामहे त्रितयं तत्र यो वेदा स आत्मा स्वाश्रयाश्रयः एकतराभावे एकतराभावे स्वात्मा स्वाश्रयाश्रया एकम one another abhave in the absence of yada because na does not upalabhamahe perceptible tritiyam tritayam in the three stages tatra there yaha the one veda who knows saha he atma the super soul swa own ashrayah shelter ashrayah of the shelter. Translation and purpose by Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: all three of the above mentioned stages of different living entities are interdependent. In the absence of one, another is not understood. But the Supreme Being, who sees every one of them as the shelter of the shelter, is independent of all, and therefore he is the supreme shelter. Kindly repeat. All three of the above mentioned stages of different living entities are interdependent. In the absence of one, another is not understood. But the Supreme Being, who sees every one of them as the shelter of the shelter, is independent of all, and therefore he is the supreme shelter. Purport. There are innumerable living entities, one dependent on the other in the relationship of the controlled and the controller. But without the medium of perception, no one can know or understand who is the controlled and who is the controller. For example, the sun controls the power of our vision, and we can see the sun because the sun has its body, and the sunlight is useful only when we have eyes. Without our having eyes, the sun is useless, and without the sunlight, the eyes are useless. Thus, they are interdependent and none of them is independent. Therefore, the natural question arises concerning who made them interdependent. The one who has made such a relationship of interdependence must be ultimately completely independent. As stated in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the ultimate source of all interdependent objectives is the complete independent subject. This ultimate source of all interdependence is the Supreme Truth or Paramatma, the Super Soul, who is not dependent on anything else. He is Swa Ashraya Shrayaha. He is only dependent on himself, and thus he is the supreme shelter of everything. Although Paramatma and Brahman are subordinate to Bhagavan, because Bhagavan is Purushottama or the super person, he is the source of the super soul also. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says that he is the Purushottama and the source of everything. And thus, it is concluded that Sri Krishna is the ultimate source and shelter of all entities, including the Super Soul and Supreme Brahman. Even accepting that there is no difference between the Super Soul and the individual soul is dependent on the Super Soul for being liberated from the illusion of material energy. The individual is under the clutches of illusory energy, and therefore, although qualitatively one with the Super Soul, he is under the illusion of identifying himself with matter. And to get out of this illusory conception of factual life, the individual soul has to depend on the Super Soul to be recognized as one with him. In that sense, also, the Super Soul is the supreme shelter, and there is no doubt about this. The individual living entity, the Jiva, is always dependent on the Super Soul, Paramatma, because the individual soul forgets his spiritual identity, whereas the Super Soul, Paramatma, does not forget his transcendental position. In the Bhagavad Gita, the separate positions of the Jivatma and Paramatma are specifically mentioned. In the 4th chapter, Arjuna, the Jiva soul, is represented as forgetful of his many past previous births, but the Lord, the Super Soul, is not forgetful. The Lord even remembers when he taught the Bhagavad Gita to the sun god some billions of years before. The Lord can remember such millions and billions of years as stated in the Bhagavad Gita as follows. Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu vedana kaschana. The Lord in his eternal blissful body of knowledge is fully aware of all that happened in the past, that which is going on at the present, and also what will happen in the future. But in spite of his being the shelter of both the Paramatma and Brahman, persons with poor fund of knowledge are unable to understand him as he is. The propaganda of the identity of cosmic consciousness with the consciousness of the individual living entities is completely misleading, because even such a person or individual soul as Arjuna could not remember his past deeds, although he is always with the Lord. And what can the tiny ordinary man, falsely claiming to be one with the cosmic consciousness, know about his past, present, and future? Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this is the conclusion of the explanation on the 10th topic of Srimad Bhagavatam, that is Ashraya. So to the queries that Maharaj Parikshit has put, Sukadeva Goswami is replying, and he has already mentioned that there are 10 topics that are covered in Srimad Bhagavatam, which covers all the answers to the inquiries that a human being can make in his existence. So these 9 topics, the first 9 topics and subsequent the 10th topic. So the 9 topics are all discussed only to highlight the importance of the 10th topic, that is Ashraya, the Samam Bonum shelter. So in the previous verse, the description is given about 3 levels of controllers. One is Adhyatmik, Adi Bhautik, and Adi Daivik. What is Adhyatmik? Adhyatmik controller is Adhyatmik is the soul. Then Adi Bhautik is the body, and Adi Daivik is the demigod. So these 3 stages are there. And here in this verse, the clarity is given that even though there are 3 controllers we see, but all of them are finally controlled by the Atma, the Ashraya. The Paramatma is controlling all the 3 stages. Ekam Ekatara Bhave. How the logic is given. Bhagavatam full of logic. What is the logic? Ekam Ekatara Bhave Yada Nopa Labhamahe. One and another, both of them have no existence without the presence of the third, that is Nopalabhamahe, that is the Supreme Lord as Paramatma. It is Paramatma who is creating interdependence of these 2 controllers. Like Prabhupada has given the example here, there is a sunlight is there, and then eyes are there. Eyes have no use without sunlight, and sunlight has no use without eyes. Sun may be existing, sunlight may be there, living entity may be there, and eyes may be there. But all of this has existed relation, value only when the other exists. So that's it. That's what called as relative truths. Relative truth means the truth is dependent on another truth. Why is the son a human being? Because the father is human being. If father was a dog, son is a dog. So son being a human being is dependent on the truth that the father is a human. The father, Then how the father is a human being? Because his father is a human being. So, in this world, there are many relative truths. But that relative truth means this truth is dependent on some another higher truth. It is taking shelter of another truth. Then, where all these truths take shelter of, that is called absolute truth. Why Krishna is God? There is no explanation to that. Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the origin of everything. So who is the origin of Krishna? That is absolute truth. Where everything, all the origins end in him. He is the. So, ekam ekatara bhave yada nopalabhamahe. When the perceptible is not there, ekam ekatara, both of them have no value. And it is he who creates that interdependence. In fact, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I create this interdependence. Where he says this? Shastre. No, Krishna says. What is mentioned here in Bhagavad Gita? Sahayagna prajashishtva Purovacha prajapati. Krishna says, in the beginning of creation, I created living entities and demigods and the interdependence between them. The performance of yagna by living entities, the demigods will make supply. Is there, no? Third chapter. So Krishna is introducing the concept of yagna. What is yagna? Because he is explaining karma yoga. So action has to be performed as a sacrifice. So this sacrifice is part of the creation. So there is a interdependence. Who has created that interdependence? Sahayagna prajasishta puro vacha prajapati. Created an interdependence between living entities and the demigods. Supreme Lord has created. So Prabhupada in the purport is giving that logic that one and another, ekam ekatara, they cannot exist without being interdependent. Both are interdependent. Now, who created that interdependence? He must be independent to both of them. And he must be the shelter to both of them. And who is that? Sa Atma Swa Ashraya Ashraya. Atma here refers to Paramatma, the super soul. Sa Atma, he is that super soul, Krishna, who is Swa, independent, completely independent. Ashraya Ashraya, he is the shelter of all the shelters. This discussions some time ago, a lot of discussions used to happen on Darwin's theory of evolution, where the description theories are given that a unicellular organism developed into a multicellular organism. As part of evolution, it evolved. So one of the arguments to defeat this Darwin's theory, many arguments are there. One of them is, they themselves discuss on this and unable to question on this point, unable to answer on this point. Darwin's, whoever proposed, they themselves are discussing this and they are unable to answer this query. What is this? What is that? There is a one living entity who is a male. There is another living entity who is a female. Who created interdependence among them so that another living entity is produced? how the evolution happened, where an interdependence was created between them. The theory is unicellular became multicellular. That means what? Every cell is growing. Its evolution it is having. There is one cell became a man and another cell became a woman. Who created interdependence between them? What created a feeling that a male and a female should combine so that another living entity, either a male or a female, is produced? There is no answer to this. See, in electrical also, no, electrical items, there's a male socket and a female socket. Two things are there. You go to any electrical shop, they'll say, if you ask him, give me socket, he'll say, you want male connection or female? He'll ask you. It basically means both have to be connected. One goes inside, one fits inside the other to make it a complete unit, to make it fully workable. So that means what? Someone has created the dependency on the two. The electrician who created that electrical item, the wires, sockets, he has created a relation between these two items so that one fits into the other. And there is a value to each other. A female socket has no value without a male socket. It has no value. But the electrician has created that link between both of them, and there's a usability. So that means what? There is someone higher intelligence who has created an interlink between them, who is independent to both of them. Now, if we can apply the same logic to the evolution also. Without someone, ashraya, without someone who is independent to both male and female, how can there be interdependence between male and female? Sometimes this feminism, feminists and all, they all fight. Shri Radha Madan Mohan ki, Krishnitaya Gurang ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. So they argue, women don't need men. They can live independent. Some man also say, I don't need anyone. It is not possible. They are created to be interdependent. Similarly, in this human society, in the not only human society, in this creation, every living entity is dependent on the other jiva. Suppose we try to eliminate one species, there will be a total imbalance in the atmosphere. Harmony will be disturbed. Once because of some reason, they actually eliminated all the bees and insects. For some reason, they are disturbing like that. What happened? Because of this, there were no flowers and fruits. Because these insects, when they migrate from one tree to another, one plant, one flower to another, they do pollination. And that is not happening. The entire ecosystem is got disturbed. So there is something called as food chain. A small aquatic will be eaten by big aquatic. And that big aquatic will be eaten by one amphibian. One amphibian will be eaten by... Like that, there's a big food chain out there. So in this entire food chain, if one species is eliminated, the entire ecosystem will get disturbed. So who created this interlink? See, wonderful. Now there is this oxygen cycle. Trees produce oxygen. This oxygen is inhaled by human beings. They produce carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide. And then this carbon dioxide or monoxide becomes a raw product for the raw material for the tree. And the tree produces oxygen, which becomes a sustainable product for human beings. Who created this interlink? A tree in the evolution could have created something disconnected to human being. Isn't it? It could have created a completely disconnected. A human being could have dependent on some gas similar to oxygen, which has no connection with what a tree is producing. But a right interrelation is created, dependence. From tree, oxygen comes and human beings breathe that and become healthy. See? So, that means what? There is a higher intelligence who is independent to both of them and who is shelter to both of them. Without him, these two have no existence. It's a very wonderful logic given in Bhagavatam to establish ashraya tattva. So we may see many shelters in this world, in this creation. America says we are the shelter for the entire world. They want to claim they are the most powerful nation and everyone should depend on America. America wants to become most powerful so that everyone begs, please give me money, please help us. Yeah, take. Tell everywhere America is great. A leader also wants everyone to depend on him. But all of this are interdependent. Just like without a king, subject has no value. Citizens have no value. And without citizens, king has no value. Suppose there is a king and there is no citizen. What kind of a king is? Isn't it? It's just like suppose someone is playing cricket without any ball. Paramatma, he never comes under illusion. That Prabhupada gives the example of two birds sitting on a tree. The two birds, one bird is enjoying the fruit of the tree. One bird is interested in the fruit of the tree. Another bird has no interest. He is not affected by the fruits of the tree. Some fruits are very bitter fruits. Some fruit are very sweet fruits. This body is producing two kinds of fruits. Papa phala and punya phala. Happiness and distress. Success and failure. The two fruits. So, he has to enjoy both of them because he is interested in the fruits of the tree. But the Paramatma, he is not interested in any fruit. Even if it is sweet also, he is not interested. Because to eat sweet fruit, you also have to eat, to understand what is sweet fruit, you have to eat bitter also. That is a interdependence is there. But Paramatma has no interest. Paramatma never comes under illusion. Whereas a Jivatma, he comes under illusion. And the difference between Paramatma and Jivatma is given in the 4th chapter, where Krishna says, Bahuni me vititani janmani tavacha Arjuna. Arjuna makes an inquiry. Actually, Krishna initially he says, I spoke this Bhagavad Gita message, this Avyaya Yoga instructions I gave. This is not first time. I gave this millions of years ago. Beginning of creation to sun god Vivas. So immediately Arjuna, like a common man, is asking, Hare, sun god is born before you. You are born later. How is it possible that you have spoken Bhagavad Gita to him? So then Krishna says, yes, Bahuni me vetitani. Many times I have born, I am born, you are also born. Bahuni me vetitani tavacha Arjuna. Tanyaham veta sarvani, but I remember all my previous births. You cannot remember. Why? Because Arjuna is a Jiva. He is not Paramatma. That is the difference between Jivatma and Paramatma. And further, entire chapter is described about transcendental knowledge. How the Supreme Lord is Divyam. Divya Purusha is transcendental to this matter. So, this is the difference. Even in the 13th chapter, Krishna describes about difference between the two Kshetragnas. One Kshetragna, he knows only about this Kshetra. The Kshetra where he is residing. Only that Kshetra, his consciousness is limited. Avinashi tadvidyam, yena sarvam idam tatam. Sarvam, his energy is only spread in this body. But there is another Kshetragna whose energy is spread all the other living entities. Every living entity. So he knows what is happening in that body, that body, that body, that body, that. But whereas Jivatma can only know about his own body, his own. That also limited, not that everything he knows. There is no guarantee everything he knows. So, there is a difference between Paramatma and Jivatma is dependent on Paramatma for liberation. Hence, Jivatma is also taking shelter of Paramatma. Paramatma is one of the stages of realization of supreme absolute truth. Bhagavan is the ultimate. So, propaganda of the identity of cosmic consciousness with the consciousness of the individual living entities is completely misleading, because even such a person or individual soul as Arjuna could not remember his past deeds, although he is always with the Lord. Even though Arjuna was with the Lord, he got that qualification to be with the Lord, purified Jiva. Some say, once the Jiva becomes purified, he becomes cosmic consciousness. He becomes aware of cosmic consciousness. No. Even though you may be Arjuna, who is completely pure, qualified to associate with Supreme Brahman, Krishna, till he is not equivalent to Paramatma. And what can the tiny ordinary man, falsely claiming to be one with the cosmic consciousness, know about his past, present, and future? It is not possible. So, we see even in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna impresses on this point. And in the second chapter, Krishna is mentioning to Arjuna that we have to take ultimate shelter of that Supreme Personality of Godhead. The very second chapter itself, Krishna says. In fact, Arjuna inquires on how a liberated person, how does he walk? Sita pragnasya ka bhasha. How does he walk? How does he talk? How does he sit? So Krishna, initially he gives about the symptoms of a Sthita Prajna. He also mentions about how he responds to various situations. When there is a difficulty, when there is a joyous moment, when there is a fearful moment, when there is attachment, how does he react to all of this? And then Krishna says, if we want to achieve that status, we have to control our senses. If we want to control our senses and achieve that status, what we have to do, that Krishna explains in this verse. Krishna says, Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matparaha vashehi yasyendriyani tasya prajna pratisthita. If we want to achieve that Sthita Prajna stage, Krishna talks about two levels, Sthita Prajna, Sthita Dhi. Sthita Dhi means intelligence is fixed. Sthita Prajna, consciousness is fixed, transcendental. Always in is not affected by Rajoguna, Tamoguna, Sattoguna, not affected. And his intelligence is fixed. Both are interconnected. They are not independent. Both are interconnected. If your intelligence is fixed, you are in transcendental platform. To come to that platform, we have to control our senses or control our desires. Initially, it starts with desire. Once the desire is generated, that desire we have to fulfill, for which we have to do sense gratification. So, hence, until someone controls his senses, he cannot come to the point of Hitadhi, his intelligence being fixed. And how we can control our senses? That formula Krishna gives in this shloka. Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matparaha. One who restrains his senses, fixes his consciousness upon me. Matparaha. Tani sarvani. All the senses, the mind, samyamya, complete control. How to control this? By engaging it in Krishna's service. Not by artificial control. Tomorrow onwards I will not do. I am perfect yogi. I am so wonderfully controlling, it will not work. Prabhupada gives the example of Vishwamitra. So powerfully he controlled his senses. But one sense, that also Krishna further he mentions. Even if one sense you say, okay, out of 5 senses I will control 4, 1 I will leave. Haranti prasabam manaha, it will be taken away. Haranti means kidnapped, swept away, finished. Vayurnavam, like a wind blows. It is not that wind has to blow from all direction to drown a boat. Just one direction if it blows, and that boat can capsize. It can be finished. So out of 5 senses, even one sense, Krishna says, if it is not in control, we are finished. So then how the senses can be put into control? Not by our individual strength. The story of Vishwamitra is there. Fully controlled up to that point. But when a tingling sound of the anklets of Menaka was heard by him, finished. Mind becomes agitated. The opportunity. So the formula given here, Yukta asita matparaha. Matparaha. Offered everything to the Supreme Lord. In relation with me. The translation. Matparaha. Prabhupada, the word matpara is most significant in this connection. Now, the senses can be completely controlled only by the strength of devotion service to Krishna. When we engage in devotion to Krishna, only then sense control is possible. Otherwise, it is impossible. So that connection, that we are dependent on the Supreme Lord for control of our senses, is there in this verse. Vashehi yasyendriyani tasya prajna pratisthita. When he controls his senses like this, yasyendriyani prajna pratisthita. His consciousness is transcendental. Wonderful. And Prabhupada, in the purport, he gives the example of Maharaj Ambrish. Maharaj Ambrish had a small misunderstanding with Durvasa Muni. Actually, Durvasa Muni had misunderstanding with Maharaj Ambrish. And Durvasa Muni, he wanted to punish Maharaj Ambrish. Who is Durvasa Muni? He is one of the great mystic yogis who has done so much of penances, tapasya. He has controlled all his senses. but he could not control his anger. And out of his anger, he created a demon. And what is his power? With his small hair follicle, he created a demon. That is his strength. Maharaj Ambarish, he don't know any mystic yoga. He just kept praying to the Lord, my Lord, please protect me. But he became so powerful that Durvasa Muni had to run up to the edge of the creation, enter into Vaikuntha Dham, meet Lord Vishnu for him to protect. That was the power of a pure devotee. And what is the reason? He is completely controlled his sense. He never got into anger mood. Maharaj Ambarish, no anger at all. Very peaceful. Even though there is an opportunity for being angry, Durvasa Muni is ready to attack him. Demon is ready to attack. Maharaj Ambarish is very peaceful. Prajna Pratishtita. And how he achieved that is explained in Bhagavatam. Savai mana Krishna padara vendayo vacham se vaikunta gunanuvarnanam. He used all his senses in Krishna's service. That is what Krishna is saying here. Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asitama. His eyes in seeing the beautiful form of the Lord. His nose in smelling the flowers offered to the Lord. His ears in listening to the glories of the Lord. His tongue in talking about the Supreme Lord and taking Krishna Prasadam. His hands in cleaning the temple of the Lord. His legs to go to the temple of the Lord. Like that, every of his senses, Maharaj Ambarish used in Krishna's service, and thus he was able to control the senses even more powerfully than the great mystic yogi Durvasa Muni. This is the power of a pure devotee or power of devotion. So, if at all we want to control sense, we should not simply control sense by artificial repression. It will only temporary, it will never work. We only have to control our sense by engaging them in Krishna's service. Rishikena, Rishikesha Sevanam. Because Rishikesha is the ultimate shelter of all the Rishika. All the senses have to take shelter of the owner of the senses, who is Rishikesha. I am thinking I will give shelter to my senses. I will control them. I will protect them. No, it is not possible. Humanly, it is impossible for him to control his own senses. So, Krishna is the shelter, ultimate shelter of all the shelters. So, Ashraya. And every jiva, his destination is, his peace, his prosperity is only possible by taking shelter of that Supreme Personality of Godhead. Only then he can control. Further, Krishna mentions in this series of verses that if you cannot control your senses, you will have no peace. If you have no peace, you will have no happiness. Then Krishna says, if you control your senses, the Supreme Lord is pleased. And if the Supreme Lord is pleased, you can easily achieve Chita Prajna, transcendental consciousness. So here further we see how the Supreme Lord, that Ashraya, he creates all these various elements and shelters them. That will be discussed in a further shloka. Any questions I can? Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.